My name is Lilith. Today, me and my teammates Jenny, Alex, and Arsen from the course Trust have come here to talk to you about one specific case where trust was broken, and then we will suggest some solutions on how to rebuild the trust specifically. So, what we will talk and discuss trust in is a very specific context of a digital failure by humans, and we will elaborate it later more specifically. So, first of all, let's think about human to human versus technological interactions or digital interactions. I think all of you would agree that there are clear, distinctive differences, especially when comparing these two. So, in case of human to human communication, besides the main verbal part of the communication, we have a very important nonverbal aspect, which includes the gestures, facial expressions, and hands, other sorts of communication that tell a lot about people, especially if you cannot guess by the tone of their voice or something is confusing. So. Also, in human-to-human communications, we can establish a deeper connection on a long-term basis because people have shared values and beliefs and shared experiences together with memories that they create in real life. So uh, it fosters the relationship further. Um, Also, in case of the real relationships, we have accountability. The aspect of accountability is very essential because, again, we put our trust in the person on a long-term basis, and that creates something, which is the accountability itself, which is absent from machines or digital interactions. For instance, if you communicate with a machine, they won't have feelings or won't understand, won't acknowledge your feelings in every situation. Um, and again, in digital interactions, there is a very important gap. It's the lack of transparency because, for instance, in long distance relationships, there is a clear pattern or curated persona of you that you present online or digitally. So you choose what version of you to reveal and what version to keep to yourself. So this is not a completely transparent or authentic relationship per se, and that can lead to a lot of misunderstandings in many manifestations. So let's go to a brief overview of what we will discuss today. We will focus on the context of Cambridge Analytica, the scandal, which is, again, as I mentioned before, digital failure by humans. And Jenny will elaborate on this further. Then we will go to the critical players and actors that influenced the overall situation, the circumstances that will be discussed by Arsen. And lastly, Alex, my teammate, will give two primary effective suggestions on rebuilding trust in the given context. We have come up with a number of solutions and suggestions, but we will particularly focus on two, the most effective ones. So now I will pass the floor to Jenny, who will further go into the actual scandal and the details.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Jenny. So let's today talk about the Cambridge Analytica scandal. So as most of us know, Facebook already has a lot of user data on us. They have names, birthdays, likes, photos, friends list, and etc. But in 2014, Facebook's official rules said that only apps could collect limited user data and only for the app's purpose. They were not allowed to sell or share this user information. Well, this is where Alexander Kogan comes in, who was a researcher in University of Cambridge and who was the creator of an app called This Is Your Digital Life in 2014. The general meaning of the app was that the app was trying to guess the personality of the user by getting access to their Facebook user information. Well, 270,000 people downloaded this application and they gave consent for the app to take on their Facebook user information. But what these people did not know that they were also giving consent for the app to access their friends' user information. Well, Kogan passed those information, which was about 50 to 80 million user information, to a company that was specializing in data mining and political strategy called Cambridge Analytica. No one knew about this, not until Christopher, who was a former employee of Cambridge Analytica, had an interview with The Times and The Guardian and confirmed that yes, this company used the user information. The company gathered the user's Facebook likes, interest, networks, and started to understand the personality of the user. This helped effectively target political advertisement and make the influence of the advertisements way more effective. So, what do you think was the aftermath of this? Of course, governments around the world, the US, UK, EU, started investigations. In 2019, Facebook was fined $5 billion by the Federal Trade Commission, one of the biggest fines ever for a tech company. Of course, Facebook's reputation took a major hit, and facing this extreme public backlash and legal investigations, Cambridge Analytica was shut down in 2018. Now let's give the floor to my teammate Arsene, who will describe who were the critical players and what were the critical factors affecting the scandal.
Hi everyone. So let's talk about the main peoples now. And the first one is the Cambridge Analytica. He's at the center because they were the ones who used the data to try to influence people's political decisions. They didn't just collect random facts. They used personal information to figure out how people think and feel. Their goal um, was to use the knowledge and to change how people vote. And that's why they are in this scandal, not just for using the data, but for how they use it to manipulate political behavior. The next one is the Facebook's. He's involved because he allowed all of this to happen. Their platform made it possible to collect data from Facebook's users and also their friends without their permissions. And Facebook didn't take enough steps to protect user privacy or to control how developers use this data. The next one is the Alexander Kogan. He was the one who created the app that collected the data. He said that it was and feared for academic research, but then he sold the data to Cambridge Analytica, likely because of the money and because he wanted to apply his research in the real world. The problem is that this broke the Facebook's rules and violated the privacy of millions of people. That's why he is included in this scandal. The next one is the Christopher Wiley. He is important because he was the one who exposed the truth. And he said he was the whistleblower because he felt that the public deserved to know what was happening behind closed doors, and everything that Cambridge Analytica was doing was wrong. And the last one is the Mark Zuckerberg. He is here because he leads Facebook. As the CEO, he had to take responsibility. People wanted to know how Facebook will prevent these kind of things in the future and what changes they would make to protect users. That's why he was called to testify before Congress to explain how such a massive data breach could happen on this platform. And now let's talk about the factors that affected all of this to happen. The first one is the technological factors. Facebook system made it easy for apps to collect a lot of personal information, not just from users, but also from their friends too. And Alexander Kogan's apps took advantage of this. The next one is the legal factors. Facebook's policies were too loose. There were not enough strong laws to protect people's personal information at that time. This scandal helped push government to create better privacy laws. The next one is the cultural factors, and this happened during the 2016 US elections. At that time, the political groups were desperate to reach their voters in smarter ways, and Cambridge Analytica used the stolen data to send people messages designed to influence their opinions and votes. And finally, when it comes to regulations, there wasn't much government control over how tech companies handled personal data. After the scandal, organizations like FTC and the ICO start serious investigations, and Facebook and Cambridge Analytica faced fines and legal actions. Now, Alex will continue and talk about the ways that we can rebuild the trust.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alex, and I'm going to suggest 4 ways and concentrate on 2, which are the most effective ways to rebuild the broken trust. So the Cambridge Analytica scandal revealed major flaws in how digital companies handle user data and showcased how quickly and fast trust can be broken in the digital world. In order to reconstruct and protect this trust, we should change the existing systems, both in how those companies operate and how users are supported in those online platforms. So the first thing that we should concentrate on, one of the 2 most effective ways to rebuild the trust, is to rethink how consent is handled. In the Cambridge Analytica case, users agreed to share their data without fully understanding what exactly they were sharing. This case was especially bad because their friends' data was also collected without their friends' direct consent. This is because I think most people can relate to what I'm going to say. So when we first log in to the sign up to the online platform, we see a window where we see the terms and conditions. It is a long and confusing file, and most of the people just don't read it. All they do is just click accept the terms and conditions, and they just give agreement to share all their data without understanding. That is because the terms and conditions file is very long and confusing, and no one has the time to read it. So all it takes is just a single click, and all our data is shared with the company. We think that consent should not be hidden in these long terms and condition files, and it should be presented to the user in a way that is easy to understand, readable, and that is understandable by the general public. So another critical issue is transparency. We think that we should change the level of transparency that the companies have with the user, because users cannot trust what they can't understand and what they can see through. This is why we should rethink how transparency is handled by those companies. So we think that it would be insightful from the companies if they provided a report file where users could get easily access to and see how their data was stored and used. For example, there could be written, your birthday date was stored by the company in their database to send you a notification on your birthday date, for example. Or in Cambridge Analytica case, if this report existed and people could see that their friends' data was collected, they could take some action and maybe prevent the scandal overall. Other ways to rebuild this trust could include introducing stronger laws, because as we can see, the Facebook and the Cambridge Analytica could get away with this case without facing real consequences, because there were not enough laws and regulations to prevent this. We think that those new laws should include, heavy fines for avoiding those regulations and transparency levels, and the companies should pay a huge amount of money if they misuse the user's data. And another thing, very simple but very effective, could be to reduce the amount of data that companies were allowed to take. Because if they took little data, we could reduce risks to poor data handling. So in conclusion, we think to rebuild the trust in this digital era, we should take very important steps. And these steps include changing how consent is handled, upgrading the levels of transparency with the user, introducing new laws, and reducing the amount of data that is allowed to the companies to have. In conclusion, we represented you the Cambridge Analytica case, Facebook Cambridge Analytica case, and we talked about the factors and people that affected this, and we then suggested ways to improve the trust. This was all. Thank you for your attention.